In the town of Kuyaya, there was one place where the scent of food alone could make your mouth water. A place where people lined up under the scorching sun, desperate for just one taste. That place was Madame Souza's restaurant. Her meals were legendary. The kind that made you forget your troubles, that made you crave more with every bite. No one could explain it. The flavors were rich, almost hypnotic. Once you ate from her pot, no other food in the town satisfied you. Business was booming. While other vendors struggled to sell even a plate, Madame Souza's restaurant was always overflowing. Customers came from far and wide, willing to wait in long lines just to eat. Other food sellers whispered behind her back, jealous and bitter. "What is her secret?" they asked. "How does she make food that good?" But no one had an answer. Inside the restaurant, her workers bustled around, serving endless plates of food to hungry customers. No one questioned anything. No one suspected anything. To them, Madame Souza was just a talented woman who knew how to cook. But secrets, no matter how well hidden, always find their way to the surface. And soon, the truth about Madame Souza's food would shake the entire town. Working at Madame Souza's restaurant was not easy. The orders never stopped coming, the kitchen was always hot, and the pressure to meet demand was overwhelming. But there was one rule that confused the workers more than anything else. At a certain point in the cooking process, everyone had to leave the kitchen. It happened every day. Just as the soups and stews were being prepared, Madame Souza would send all the cooks outside. No questions asked. "Give me a few minutes," she would say, her voice firm. "I'll take care of the rest." The workers obeyed. They had no choice. It was her restaurant, after all. And many big chefs had their own special techniques they preferred to keep secret. No one dared to question her. After a few minutes, she would open the doors, calling the workers back in. The food would be richer, more fragrant. It was her secret ingredient, they assumed. Something special she added to make the meals taste like no other. Whatever it was, it worked. Customers kept coming. The restaurant stayed full. The food never lost its magic. No one ever thought too deeply about it. Except for one person. A new worker named Grace. Grace was young, sharp-eyed, and curious. And while everyone else ignored Madame Souza's strange habit, she couldn't. Something about it felt off. What was so secret that even her own cooks couldn't see? Why did she need everyone out of the kitchen, every single day? Grace didn't have answers, but she was determined to find them. And once she did, she wished she never had. Grace had always been the kind of person who needed to understand things. While others followed rules blindly, she questioned them. And this time, the questions wouldn't leave her mind. Why did Madame Souza need to be alone in the kitchen? What was in that secret ingredient that made the food so addictive? At first, she tried asking the other workers. "It's just how she does things," one of them shrugged. "Every great cook has a secret recipe," another added. But Grace wasn't satisfied. She started paying close attention, watching for details that others ignored. She noticed that no one had ever seen Madame Souza prepare the secret ingredient. It was never on the shelves, never in the storage room. She never asked anyone to fetch it. It just appeared. And then there was something else, something even stranger. Madame Souza never looked tired in the mornings. No matter how late she stayed at the restaurant, no matter how long she worked, she would always return the next day looking fresh. Too fresh. Grace didn't know what was happening, but she knew one thing. She had to find out. One night, when the town was fast asleep, Grace made her move. She had noticed that Madame Souza always arrived early, before the first workers even stepped into the restaurant. But where was she coming from? Grace wrapped herself in a dark shawl and followed Madame Souza's every step from a distance. The streets were silent, the air thick with the smell of damp earth. Madame Souza walked swiftly, as if drawn by something unseen. Her path twisted through the marketplace, past the town square, down an alley, and then she stopped. Grace held her breath. Before her stood a building she never expected. The mortuary. Grace's stomach twisted into knots as she watched Madame Souza slip inside, her bucket still clutched tightly in her hands. Minutes passed. Then she emerged. The bucket was now filled with a dark, murky liquid. Grace felt like screaming. She staggered backward, heart pounding against her ribs. This was no secret ingredient. This was the water used to wash the dead, and she had been serving it to customers. Fear clawed at Grace's chest, but she knew she needed proof. No one would believe her without evidence. The next morning, before anyone else arrived, she hid a small camera behind the spice rack in the kitchen. If Madame Souza was really doing what Grace suspected, the camera would catch it all. Then she waited. Like clockwork, Madame Souza cleared the kitchen at the usual time. She locked the doors. She lifted the lid of her bucket, and the camera captured everything. The thick, eerie liquid poured into the bubbling pots. Madame Souza stirred slowly, whispering under her breath, as if speaking to something unseen. When it was over, she wiped her hands clean, adjusted her apron, and called the workers back inside. The food was ready. The customers would come. But this time, Grace had proof. Grace wasted no time. She ran straight to the police station, breathless, her hands shaking as she handed over the footage. The officers watched in stunned silence. Then, without hesitation, they followed her back to the restaurant. Madame Souza was in the middle of serving lunch when the doors burst open. "Madame Souza, you're under arrest." The restaurant fell into chaos. Customers gasped, workers backed away. Madame Souza's face drained of color as the officers grabbed her wrists, locking them in cold metal cuffs. "What is this about?" she demanded, her voice sharp. But the moment they showed her the footage, the fight left her body. Her shoulders sagged. And then she confessed. She had been desperate. Her restaurant had been failing. She had struggled to make ends meet. So she had gone to the river goddess, begging for help. And the goddess had given her an answer. Use the water of the dead. At first, she was horrified. But when she saw how her business transformed overnight, she convinced herself it was worth it. "I wanted to stop," she whispered, her voice hollow. "But once you invite spirits into your life, they never let you go." Madame Souza was sentenced to prison, her once thriving restaurant now shut down forever. News of the horror spread like wildfire. Customers who had eaten from her pot felt sick, disgusted by the truth. Some swore they could hear whispers at night, voices calling from beyond. The town of Kuyaya would never forget what had happened. Not all success comes from hard work. Some success is built on secrets. And some secrets should never be uncovered. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.